Coming back to like regulation. So like there's lots of regulation in the space, all kinds of stuff going on, but like stablecoins basically are now like very much a front and center topic. And, the FSB is, doing this stuff. We've been involved in that. Like there's going to be a global regime around private sector stablecoins, which I think is ultimately a really positive thing, because of essentially what that means is that like G20 and beyond, private sector stablecoins are going to be essentially, a valid payment system, a valid, infrastructure that like you can build financial markets around, that you can build payment systems around, you can do all this stuff around. It's just, there's going to be a bunch of rules around what it is to be an issuer, what it is to, what kind of licensing you need, what kind of, rule set you have to follow, which, we have kind of self-governance around that now through Center, but like there's going to be governance around that, over the next year. Do you think that's like a huge positive? Do you think that negatively affects things like Tether? Like, what do you think happens there?
I think I don't know, because it kind of depends on how they treat it, right? Like there's a bad world in this too, right? Like there's a world where like you have to have travel rule level enforcement of every transaction. And then it's like, does this even work? Like, how can you even like be using this stuff like on chain if everything like, so that's definitely this is going to be terrible. But then the good could be is like, all right, as long as you police the on and the off ramps, everything that happens inside is like fine. And like, I don't know where that's going to shake out, right? Like I do not understand enough of like how the nuances of like those conversations go, of like where they're like trying to land that thing. And like, I would assume you guys are more on the, all right, if it's coming in and out of the banking sector, like we got it. And then like, once it's out, it's like good to go. And I can very much see people being like, well, what about all these transactions that happen in the middle? Like, why is that not subject to the same level of like oversight that we would do if it were in a traditional sort of banking side? So that concerns me, is that they'll use it as a way to block some of this stuff. And the problem is it's all dollars at the end of the day. So they do have some jurisdictional ability to sort of like take it on, which concerns me. And this is, I think, why people gravitate sometimes towards Tether, is because they assume, nobody really knows how this is ever going to play out, that Tether is going to be a much more resistant to changes that potentially move it more towards that more heavily regulated side. But like that being said, like they're still dollars at the end of the day. So it's not like they're going to be like on some different, like it's not like their dollars are different than USDC's dollars. So we'll see how all that plays. That's what scares me, is like a user of all these things, is like, how are they going to craft this stuff on it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of industry work happening around that right now, to kind of come up with, kind of technical solutions to how you can deal with things like record keeping on transactions that are happening on public chains, but still enable like the seamlessness of the experience and what you're trying to do. I think, I think that my take is that over time, like jurisdictional arbitrage on like, businesses that intermediate crypto dollars is going to be difficult over time. Which is
it's that like in between zone, right? It's like where you're not big enough, but like you're still trying to. That's like where I think it's like all at risk.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you take something like Libra, and because the potential systemic scale of it is so large, like it's locked down. I mean, it's basically a lockdown network, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What I think is going to be a very interesting one that's going to butt its head is, so like part of the thing with dollars that like has always stopped dollarization of like other areas has been like you have to get physical currency, right? And like that slows it down. But like if this stuff's all digital and there's just dollars like whipping around, like
absolutely
lower grade currencies are just going to get nuked if this thing gets like enough critical mass. And I'm very curious how like those places are going to react to this stuff. Well, like, it's very possible they're like, no, you can't do this. Like,
I mean, this is like, I use the analogy of like what happened with over the top is this concept that existed in media and communications on the internet, which is basically like, there used to be all these like regulated firms in every country that would like handled like who could broadcast information, who could publish, who could intermediate like voice conversations. Like that was a pretty regulated space, very regulated, with big national monopolies, with in some cases like government run infrastructure in lots of places. And then like, boom, software on the internet, and everything went over the top, and like anyone can broadcast anywhere, anyone can share information anywhere, anyone can communicate with anyone instantly, peer-to-peer, censorship resistant, all this stuff launched, and kind of the world rolled over, in a sense, like, because people were like, this is just better. I want this. It's better. It's faster. It's cheaper. It's easier. I like it. And like, it was almost impossible for these national governments to say, no, you can't use Skype, or, no, you can't use Twitter. You've had obviously interventions that have happened. You've got, firewalls that are, doing stuff. Is the market moving?
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking with you. I was debating with people before we started, like, while we were talking, are we going to cross 12,000 and or 425 on Bitcoin, on Ethereum, but I haven't looked. So anyway, in all seriousness, it's like over the top kind of concept, and like digital currency is over the top, right? And this is, this kind of thing where, stable coins like can exist on the internet. And as you said, like if I'm in Zimbabwe, or I'm in, Argentina, or I'm, pick your place. It sort of has that kind of power. And, are people just going to vote with their smartphones what economic system they want to participate in? In a sense, right?
Right. So I don't know. This is all getting out there too, right? Like, this is really just sort of being like, what are the knock-on effects? It's just like, money is such a more powerful thing than, not that like media is not a really important thing, but like controlling your money and your sort of ability to like police and or like your currency is such an important part of like you as a nation. Like
fiscal policy, taxation,
everything changes if suddenly you don't really have a handle on it, or you're like stuck using somebody else's and you didn't want to. I don't know how.
But isn't this is like the big long macro thesis on digital currency, which is like, this is building a new global economic order that is going to be more global digital currency based.
Right. And is it going to just be dollars, or it will be crypto? Right. This is the other thing. It's like, is it really going to be dollars at the end of the day once everybody has dollars?
Or something synthetic?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's way out there, and it's cool to make those projections. But I think in the short term, you're going to have you definitely have some resistance.
Yeah, for sure. Well, actually, so just maybe actually in the short term, I think this is one of the things that we're seeing is like big fintechs, big payment companies, banks, other people are basically wading into stablecoins. And so like, one of the really critical things is, and, we had this OCC guidance a couple of weeks ago that said, hey, banks can custody crypto. And that, presumably also includes stablecoins. But we're seeing, sort of this very strong engagement now from, lots of different players in the traditional, quote unquote, digital payments, fintech, and even banking sector, who are like, they're wading into this, and including with things like USDC. Like, what does that look like maybe a year from now, where all of a sudden, like, these rails are just like connected up and people can use them in kind of more of the mainstream products that they know and love and use today, instead of just like, their crypto wallet that maybe is a little bit more trading focused.
It's going to be great, right? Like, if all this stuff is like actually connected and you're like able to like whip like dollars around it, it's going to be so much better. Like, the current experience is terrible, right? Like, if I got money in Bank of America and like I got to give it to somebody in PayPal, right? It's like, yeah, you can do it, but like it's crappier than it needs to be, and like it's weird, right? Because like it's one of these things that like technology just like never. Yeah, well, like, why can't I do it? But I could send money from Binance to like KuCoin, and like nobody cares, and it's like, why is that so easy? Yet two mega companies that have hundreds of billions in revenue can't, like, I don't know, like it's clearly going to go that way.
We're getting a lot closer.
It's kind of, I mean, there's no chance it doesn't get there. Yeah. It's like, who's going to push it so that it becomes like standard and everybody has to have it?
We're working on it.
No, it's going to be so much better. I mean, I say this all the time. I was like, it would be amazing to just have a bank account that was USDC plugged in, right? Like, if I could just use my Bank of America account and also like, all right, I got to send 50,000 USDC somewhere, like, boom, just like that. Like, that would be such a powerful, useful value add.
Maybe you could tap some crypto yields at the same time.
Yeah, and like plug it in. I mean, like that's probably like going to take a little more. Like I'm sure they're like risk and compliance guys are going to need like it took them this long to like get comfy on that side, like let alone like. But anyway, but either
Right.
way,
But most young people, like they're, you know, like when you, whatever, demand deposit account, right? You're a grown man with a family, Dan. But most young people with the demand deposit account, that's like Square Cash, Venmo, Revolut,
yeah,
like PayPal, that kind of thing, right? So, you know, the front edge of banking is fintech products, right? And neobank type products, right? Maybe they'll be the first to tip the scales.
that makes sense. I mean, like probably Square's the furthest along because
They're
they
already
let you
doing
do
crypto,
right. They have Bitcoin. You can go in and out. Like it's not much of a leap to go. Well, like how do you go from there to dollars? Conceivably, they've already taken care of the fraud issues on the Bitcoin side. So
Right.
like
Right.
dollar stable coins, not like a ton of difference. Yeah, I mean that would be good to have them be like the first sort of person to do it. Yeah,
We'll see
and
what
it'd be
happens.
useful. It'd be I would 100% switch all of my banking over to
Yeah.
whoever does that.